it's always a risk. It's always a trade-off of things. It just takes like some kind of faith and some kind of starting point to really know that you can do it or you can set it up.
Welcome back, everybody. Rich Brubaker, founder of Collective Responsibility, here today with another episode of the Mission Driven Podcast. Through this podcast, I'm engaging the mission driven ecosystem of entrepreneurs, innovators, investors, and academics. For me, it's all about inspiring and equipping the next generation of aspiring entrepreneurs, but also help the ecosystem itself understand how to better bring these entrepreneurs, these innovators to scale. And through this episode, I'm extremely honored to be joined by Apols Garmay, who is the founder of Hidden Manna Farms. Hidden Manna Farms is an agri-tech startup and a social enterprise providing opportunities for rural farmers and safe products for consumers in the Philippines. I just got back from the Philippines, spent a lot of time out in the field, seeing the conditions there, and I've actually had a lot of great conversations with others who are building similar platforms. And for me, it's a great opportunity to learn about how do you solve real problems on the grassroots level, but also feeding that back into the systems. It's a very big topic. It's a very big challenge, but she has taken this up with her and her team, and it's great to have her here to speak about her work. So, Apols, thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you so much as well for the opportunity for having me here in your platform.
All right. So, as a starting point, I would like to ask, who are you and what's the mission that you're on?
I'm Apols, and I am the founder of Hidden Manna Farms, a social enterprise, and I am on a mission to make sure that our small and rural farmers, especially those in the geographically isolated communities, can earn dignified, stable incomes by being directly connected to the markets and not trapped in long chains of multiple middlemen. And also, at the heart of my work is the belief that agriculture isn't just about food, but it's about justice, dignity, and of course, long term community resilience.
How'd you come into this work? I know you have a much longer career that you had in Manila, downtown, central, but where were you and how did you come into this work?
Right. So going back to that, well, there's a core problem that our farmers experience, and the fact that I grew up in the rural area, I understand the level of the problem that they are having. And out of that situation, I was able to come out with the idea of putting up a social enterprise that caters to the needs of our small farmers.
You mentioned that you had like I guess a history in that region. So I guess I'm curious, like, how do you come up with the idea itself? Because there's a lot of people who live in cities that have a romanticized idea about starting a farm or going back to the field. Like, but what was your first step, or what catalyzed you to say, okay, I'm going to give up this career in an office space behind a computer and go and work with farmers?
Yes. So, way before the Hidden Manna Farms, of course, my work in teaching and other jobs gave comfortable living for me, of course. But I couldn't remove in my mind the fact that whenever, every time I go back to my mom's place in that province here in the Philippines, I still see the same situation. It did not change for many years ever since I was a kid. And growing up, now that I'm in my 30s, it's still the same thing. It's still the same system in place. And that was the time that I thought, I think something's going to happen. And if there's no one who's going to intervene in this situation, I mean, who else is going to do it? So I was the only one first who had that in mind, who planned it out. And then I thought, wait a second, I think I'm still working, and the fact that I am the breadwinner of my family, so I had to support them as well. So I did not really get into that all of a sudden. So it was a step by step. It was not immediate. It was a gradual decision. So at the same time, understanding things first around me, what's going on, what are the things that I need to do, and since my background, I did not finish the agriculture course as my formal course in college. So I first made a decision of trying to understand the environment first. So it goes through the way of talking to the farmers, asking what are their main problems, seeing what I saw already, and then asking what are the interventions that they have already received so far. So I did a lot of research and also went through a short course for agripreneurship so far. And then saw things from there. So that was the start of my change of career. Yeah.
Changing career, taking all these steps, that has to have kind of like a financial and emotional process as well, in terms of, say, the skill set process. But financially, emotionally, where were you at the time? And was there a moment you're like, I can do this? Or even if I fail, it's okay. I can get myself like, I think a lot of people, they struggle to kind of get over that hump. Or if they do, they're not sure like what do they need to have in place financially or emotionally to get done. So I'm curious like what your mindset was at that point, and what did you do to kind of like prepare yourself? Like, okay, one, two, three.
So financially, it honestly wasn't easy at all. At that time, I was already, again, like what I said earlier, the breadwinner in my family. My father had passed away, so it was just me and my mom and my sister. And I had to think very carefully about what kind of backup I would need in case the idea didn't work. So before Hidden Mana even existed, I had actually prepared myself mentally to actually even leave the country and find work in another country and become an OFW if necessary. So that was my safety plan. But of course, I also didn't have working capital in the beginning. The very first funding that helped me start came when I joined the Wisely program in early 2022. Then in 2023, from the same program, it was during a summit that I formed a group with two other participants from that forum coming from Indonesia and Thailand. And unexpectedly, our group received funding. And I used that support to run our first capacity building project with farmers. So that became one of the early building blocks of Hidden Mana. And emotionally, I'll be very honest. Entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. So, before formally forming Hidden Mana, I had to deal with a lot of internal doubts and also emotions, and I had to develop patience and grit, these values that, to be honest, I didn't naturally have when I was younger. So I am still a work in progress, but building something meaningful forces you to really grow into those qualities. So I accepted that uncertainty as part of the cost of doing a meaningful work. But of course, those uncertainties revealed what I am actually capable of doing as well. So with the little savings that I had, together with all the things that I have already planned for and did in my business plan initially, those were the starting point.
This is a little bit of a different interview than I had planned, but I basically want to understand this right. You mentioned that if this didn't work, you knew you could become an OFW or an overseas Filipino worker, correct? I've been in Asia for 25 years. I know there's very few, let's just say, options when you say that. One of them being housekeeper, maybe nursing, healthcare providers, and a few others. You were comfortable giving up a job that I'm guessing was consistent enough to support your family, to take the risk that if you're going to fail, you're going to leave the country to become potentially a housekeeper or someone who worked in the healthcare sector. That is gritty. Like that itself is a lot of courage. And I'm wondering, like, can you just walk through that a little bit for me? Because again, like I think a lot of people aren't prepared for entrepreneurship, but you were prepared for the downside being a significant change of pattern. And I mean, you would join what 30% of Filipinos who leave the country to find others incomes. So like it was probably an understood path for you, but still, like that's a lot.
Right, Rich. So, the idea of planning to be an OFW was just basically a secondary plan. So, I thought that if HMF, Hidden Mana, wouldn't work or didn't work, well, I think I have to really gather myself together, tell my mom that I'm so sorry it did not work, and I have to go to another country to work because that's where the income is most steady. And it's actually true for all the Filipinos. The reason why they are in other countries right now is because of primarily the desire to support their family way back. And again, like what I mentioned earlier, I was a breadwinner, and so every decision that I make would always entail um, personal thinking, a long time thinking. It's not only on my personal choice of doing something, but also keeping them in mind all the time. So I was actually already been offered even way before Hidden Mana to be to work in office in an office like an administrative assistant in somewhere in Canada. So where my one of my relatives are in right now. But it was just a secondary plan. And I knew that at one point, there is still this that sliver of hope, that silver of hope that I'm looking at for Hidden Mana Farms. Because during that time, I think that was way back 2022, or even way before that, like during the pandemic, I see the significance of the rising of agriculture sector because of the disruption, right, during the time. So I saw the pattern and I was like, hey, why don't I just wait for a few times or a few moments and for a few years probably and see where this is going. So that was also the time that I was able to connect with some people. So I saw the the impact, and I saw the thing that I can do actually out of it.
That's awesome. So, okay, you measure your downside risk, you're comfortable with it, you're setting the vision, and you set it on geographically, economically isolated farmers. Why those individuals? Why not individuals closer to the markets that you are going to ultimately serve? Like if you're in Manila, why not, work with farmers who are like literally an hour drive outside the city, transportation wise, they're very efficient. You can stay downtown, you can work with them, come back. Like, why go to isolated regions to help those individuals?
So yeah, that's right. So of course, number one, I had to consider the familiarity. I am more familiar with the ways of the farmers in northern Samar in the Visayas region compared to the ways of the farmers in the Luzon area or the places near the Metro Manila area. So yeah, believe it, yeah, actually the ways of the farmers are very different in every region, because of the different produce that they do or they have. And of course, since the farmers in the Visayas region, they are the most excluded all of the time. When you look at the definition of the word marginalized, this word fits the people we invite to our programs, in our trainings, and our contracts. And of course, I have witnessed it myself. I mean, I wouldn't work on this industry if not for the experience I had growing, seeing all these difficulties even in our daily lives. And as they say, exclusion compounds poverty. Philippines was once known for its agriculture, even teaching other nationalities, but it isn't the case now. We no longer have that label. Yet, if you go to the provinces, you'll see a lot of potential, all just going to waste. And I believe also that if the system works for the hardest cases, it will absolutely work anywhere else.
Okay. So tell me about those hardest cases. Like, what are the unique challenges you think the communities face, and how does isolation kind of affect their ability to access markets and fair pricing?
So, since they are living in geographically identified areas or isolated areas, isolation increases the transport costs. It weakens also their bargaining power, and it limits the information flow. So, these farmers often don't know the real market prices, so they are just forced to accept whatever is offered to them.
But I mean, a lot of the market information is available online on apps. Like, how are they that disconnected, or is it just a matter of they themselves are not on these platforms yet, um, or they're too small to even be on the platforms because usually the wholesalers are the ones who are monitoring that stuff. Like, what's the background to that?
So these areas that we're working with are definitely away from the nearest highway in the Philippines. So we're talking about being in the midst of the mountainous terrains, but still there's a way. There's what we call farm to market roads. They're kind of small roads connected to the national highways or national roads, but still, even with that existing, there is also the lack of infrastructure in terms of connectivity. So when you go to these areas, the Philippines, since it's an archipelago, if you reach other different areas, rural areas, you'll find out that they cannot reach they don't have yet access to the internet. So they rely only on TV yet. Yeah, although there are already existing internet connections, such as they call it the piso Wi-Fi, wherein you have to put a coin in order to get 5 minute Wi-Fi connection. But still, it's not enough because they cannot access all of the other stuff in the internet that they need to find. And at the very beginning, they don't know what exactly to find from the internet because it's a whole lot thing.
It's a whole thing, that's for sure. I mean, I just came back from Palawan and we were in the middle, and it was amazing to think like it took us an hour and a half to go what should have been probably a half an hour worth of driving. I mean, the roads are really, they're in awful conditions in some parts, and they're very small, they're very narrow. People are very disconnected from each other. I mean, there's some beauty in that. I mean, that's why we go there. But if you're a farmer trying to get yourself to market, it's really tough. And actually, we flew Cebu Airlines, and I was watching other people check in. And what was interesting was from Manila to Palawan, they were checking massive white styrofoam boxes full of frozen goods. So even though they're surrounded by the farms, they were using airlines like as individuals to go shopping in the big city to bring it back to the growing regions.
I mean, you have already experienced it yourself, so somehow you have a snapshot of what the entirety of the thing, right? I mean, if it was difficult for some people to get there, I mean, there's beauty in the isolation and peace, but at the same time, it's on the part of the farmers, it's quite different.
Yeah. So, all right, early days, HMF, I believe is what you call it. Um, what was operating like? Because, if you're building an organization, you want to be able to access some measure of efficiency and scale. So in your lean days, you can be a little bit more mindful of the resource you have. But with these farmers, I mean, you must have been doing just a lot of travel, a lot of one-on-one, probably a couple visits a day, maybe three a day. Um, did that make it harder for you? Did that make it more valuable? Like how do you look at that time? And again, like you mentioned, if you can do it in the hard times, you can do it in the easier. Like how does that all work together?
Yeah, so absolutely. The beginnings of HMF logistics were very expensive just to get there, just to get across our capacity building programs and projects. Volumes, of course, were very inconsistent. They don't know what to do at first. We have to brief them, and most especially, the trust took time. But it also forced us to build systems that were not just convenient, but at the same time resilient. So there was a history of cynicism among these people due to many experiences of promises that were not fulfilled to them. So the challenge also lies on the fact that geographically they feel left out and that they had no one to turn to. So it was honestly covering not just the idea of them earning, but setting their trust, speaking to them more, even if it means going back always like 3 or 4 times in a month. So, yeah, speaking to them, or else they will resort to something else for survival. And I'm talking about joining insurgent groups and, abandoning farming altogether. So it's basically a domino effect.
Yeah, and I won't speak to the joining of insurgencies. I mean, that's something definitely unique to southern Philippines and to some parts of the world. But leaving the farm is certainly not unique at this point. Like this is one of the biggest threats to food security right now is that so many farmers are, their kids are like, no, I want off the farm. I'm going to get educated. Actually, the education quality of many of these countries is getting better. So, how's that opportunity as well? Like, how do you, speak to these individuals? How do you build trust? And, what's your process for that?
So of course it was very difficult because since it's an isolated area and they only have a very limited access to information about what's going on, where can they actually deliver their own goods, actually not just within the municipality or their area. So, of course, like what you said earlier, it was a domino effect. So the children see the difficulty that is happening among their parents, and then they pass it on to them, and they would tell, you have to go to school, you have to finish college so that you can have a work and not farm. So it's more of a discouraging thing for them to go on a farm because, of course, the system in itself is already a discouraging thing. So the very first thing that we set in these capacity training building programs was more on the trust. So we gave them as much as possible the idea of, hey, you're not only the ones experiencing it, and actually there's a whole lot market waiting for you, but if you will allow us to come with you, to work with you, it's going to be easier than this. It's not going to be like overnight success of giving you like millions or thousands of pesos, but step by step we would understand altogether how can you be not just a farmer but a farmer entrepreneur. So it's more of changing their mindset from the usual thought or the belief that they had to understanding even further that there is actually more for that for them.
So how long does I mean these are smaller farmers, and I don't know if they all were monocropping or if they had like a mix of things going on, but usually that can take a long time to see any results because even if they see results, they can often be very small because they're small. So how did you view that? And then how did that change your approach, or how did that, factor into your wider strategy of helping farmers? Like, did you have to focus on coconuts or cassava or like single groups, or did you try and bring up the community and then try and find ways to then layer the impact at the community level?
So from the very beginning, we focus on one community. We call it a barangay, or in English, it's like a village. And we thought that this place is kind of ready already for transporting their goods, not just within the markets that they know locally, but actually even way beyond. So in this place, coconut was the most popular common product, and there was no multi-cropping yet, although they have existing gardens wherein they separately plant all their daily needs like vegetable crops or anything that they need like cassava or sweet potato. So we said, okay, continue doing that, but there is a big potential for coconut. So let's stick to that first, and then later on, we'll lead you with the idea of multi-cropping because multi-cropping is good. And it's not only going to give you more income, but it can sustain you also with food at the same time. So that was the process first, giving them the idea that you cannot only earn from a coconut tree or from the coconut fruit that you're making, but actually other crops. And at the same time, we let them focus on the coconut, other parts of the coconut, like for example the lumber, the even the leaves, and even the actual fruit itself and all the other parts. So we did a lot of training and understanding first because although they are very exposed to the agricultural work, but formally, if once they have learned all these things, that oh, okay, so we didn't know that actually we can get other products from the coconut. We thought it's only one product. So that's when everything shifted. Yes.
Now, around that time, you're doing training with farmers who are, they're already considered on the lower end of the income scale. How were you getting paid? And as you're going through these initial days, how did you say revisit your own model? Like, what were the revisions that you were making along the way that they were making as well?
Yeah. So initially, right? So when farmers would say, thank you for the training, but who will buy our produce? That's when I realized skills without markets don't change lives. So yeah, even as for us, Hidden Manna, we have to be sustainable. We need our social enterprise to be sustainable in the long run if we want to help others as well. So in every training, there is always telling them that there is an assurance that their produce can be marketable because it is. And at the same time, We started, yes, we started with capacity building programs, but that was also the time that we also fully committed after those programs to connecting them to the market and then getting also a percentage from that. So basically the business model for Hidden Mana is that we connect them to the markets, and then we let them go through the contracts, and then of course a transparent contract, and then it is stipulated there that, of course, as someone who connects them to the direct market and to the other markets, we get something. So that's how it started, that we started getting paid, or yeah, income.
As part of that, do you take control over anything? Do you take ownership of the produce, and are you putting in risk capital as part of that, or are you kind of an agent or a filter for the buyer to help find better providers?
The best way to define it is like we are still the middleman, but the difference is that we are the transparent and, let's say, ethical middleman, because the systems that they had gone through is like multiple middlemen, so to the point that only little money comes to them or comes back to them. So we wanted to destroy that, or we wanted to break that one. So what we did is that, hey, we can connect you to the markets that are more sure that they can buy it at a bigger price without even getting a big chunk from what you have made and what you have worked for.
And then how many farmers are you working with now? What is scale for you through this process? Like, are we talking, you're hoping to help hundreds of thousands, or you're happy at the five community in the spaces that you come from, know well, and want to have a great impact to?
So for us, scale, yes, when people say scale, they would say being able to produce or transport or export in other markets, or build infrastructures that would do value adding. That's also part of our definition of scale. But for us, it's more than just the numbers. It's also how our farmers can rely on the predictable income year after year. And if farmers can also plan their lives, send their children to school, and invest back to their farms again, I mean, for us, that's a real scale. And of course, apart from coconut, since we focus on high value crops, we also target and plan to cover all other high value crops as well, like ube, if you've heard of ube, the purple yam, and also mangoes from some islands here in the Philippines, and seaweed, yeah, and bananas soon in the future. So these are all set in the future, but we're very sure, and we've got a lot of questions coming from them already, not just from the community we're working currently, but other farmers and communities as well.
Okay, so you mentioned that you want them to be able to kind of predict what they're seeing, whether mid to long term. So how do you measure the impact of your work to the farmers? Like, are there specific indicators like you're increasing your income, its stability of orders, they're more reliant, they're more resilient as a family? Like, how are you measuring your impact?
So of course, impact for us is the income stability. It matters most. So it's not just on the higher prices, but of course, fewer shocks. We also look at the reduced dependence of them on the middlemen, multiple middlemen, and improve planning confidence among these farmers, and whether they can make production decisions based on the market demand rather than the uncertainty. So at the same time, we are preparing them to really talk directly to the manufacturer, to the market, actual market that they are dealing with. Because once they know and understand how to negotiate, they can definitely lead their lives, and probably they don't need us anymore.
Mm. And are you okay with that? Because a lot of people aren't. They want to stay in the middle and they want to keep milking that cash cow. Um, but you kind of giggle as you say that. So how do you feel about becoming obsolete in these families in these farmers' lives after you've benefited them so much?
Actually, I believe that we won't be obsolete because instantly, for example, they were able to connect with all these markets directly and they are able to negotiate. They still need more trainings. They still need more support in terms of, let's say, for example, the GAP, the general agricultural practices. things that they don't know yet. So we will continue to exist on those terms, not just on the market connection, but also on other stuff. Holistic approach, as we say.
All right. How do you see scale going forward? Is it replicating the model and hiring more people? Is it deeper impact and the same community but new crops and really aggregating them? Or are you looking at building, saying a builder, building a broader ecosystem that would then have impact that you don't necessarily control, but you have influence over?
Yeah, absolutely. Ecosystem. True scale for us happens when multiple actors like cooperatives, buyers, local governments, and of course, technical partners, if they align around farmer led ecosystems or systems. So, one organization cannot transform a value chain alone. It needs collaboration. And that's why we continuously do collaborations with everybody. We don't see them as competition. Like, for example, other existing social enterprises that do the same as HMF. So we do collaborate with them all the time. But I also would like to emphasize on the significance of replication. The Philippines being an archipelago, and every terrain has its own community of rural and small farmers, if what we do in one community can be replicated in other areas, that for us is also a significant measurement of success. So I best believe that the two should, complement each other.
Ecosystem of support. You mentioned about building the ecosystem that you want to deliver. You've been recognized by several organizations. You participated in the U.S. study tour, which I saw on your LinkedIn. I even had a picture from you in Iowa. Um, how have those experiences, those moments of recognition, supported or shaped your journey?
Well, I am very much grateful that they validated that what we are building locally actually matters globally. So seeing other systems helped refine our strategy and reminded me that many countries are also solving similar challenges in agriculture. It makes myself reflect on those experiences. How can I, best improve systems in our partnership with the small farmers? And if I can replicate them also in my community, why not?
And what did you learn in Iowa that was applicable back in the Philippines?
Wow. I mean, that was a very memorable time of my life in the US. There was clarity for me, confidence, at the same time, a greater understanding, greater perspective, how they have connected me to people who also challenge my assumptions and also push me to think beyond the local context. I see how rigid their systems are, and I wish the same for my community. And I am glad that they help me articulate better what we want them to know and also to find a network of community and support that share same goals and solutions to problems. And it's good that, for example, the systems in Iowa, the things that I did there, the people I have met, they're very welcoming and also taught me things that I've never done before. Like, okay, so I'm going to make sure that I'm going to bring it back to my country and show it all to you.
But I mean that ecosystem, did you have to go to Iowa to get it? Like, is there one in the Philippines that you are part of that you've, found kind of camaraderie in and that you can rely upon in the same way?
Well, there's actually an existing uh, group and community here in the Philippines, but I thought that, the idea of just understanding it locally is very different from understanding it in a different environment. How I was always wondering, how do the farmers in United States or maybe in another country think about systems, food security, and community resilience? So that was my goal. I mean, there are resources available in here, but I wanted to have a broader perspective that helped me a lot, actually, even until now.
So then what are the resources that you rely upon when you're home? Like what kind of entrepreneurs are there? Is it an agri-tech group? Is it just a wider social entrepreneur group? Is it like who are the groups that you rely upon? And you know, have you found mentors and advisors that are also, through this process also helping you along?
Yeah, so I've been part ever since my stint in the United States. I was able to be part of the many different organizations, including um, communities that only focus on social entrepreneurs, on how to scale them, help them understand better, help them, train for, be prepared for, let's say, exporting. Like, for example, I was able to be part of the ADB training, and also, yes, a group of young agripreneurs where I belong. And of course, other programs like still the Wisely group of Filipinos and also other similar groups. So for mentors, it's very important for me to have mentors, and I'm very fortunate to find them in these different communities. They help me see the blind spots, especially on the cash flow, pacing growth, establishing relationships, governance, really big help. It helps me balance the mission with the discipline as well, which is required to build something very sustainable.
So then, what are the gaps that you think you face, and what's the support you think you need to grow? I mean, obviously, funding is always going to be a problem, but what are some of the other gaps that you're looking to fill, and what are those areas of support you wish you had, people around you to support?
Yeah, of course, I'll be very straightforward. Right now, we are still looking for partners who can support us through capital as well, in order to build, and in order to build and move to value adding other than providing raw materials. Of course, logistics partnerships and any policy alignment that truly includes our smallholder farmers, because I do believe that there are existing organizations or groups that actually try to form these policies wherein everyone is connected and included. And so those are very critical if we want an inclusive agricultural systems to scale. And, the clamor here of the farmers that we have talked to is increasing. And so the pressure is on me right now. So that's why I keep on inviting people, hey, if you're very, yeah, very keen on, securing food in the future, please do connect with me.
So sorry, when you speak about policy, like, do you mean like local policymakers in the Philippines? Is that who you're talking to? And what is their engagement with you? Like, where do you think they fit into this? Are they super supportive because they're trying to help the farmers? Are they themselves struggling to understand what's going on? I'm really like, I view the role of policymakers to be one of the most critical, particularly in how they open the opportunities up for entrepreneurs. So, you mentioned policymakers. I'm curious, like, what has your experience been? Are they super supportive of your work? Is there still some obstacles policy wise that would make it easier for you? Are these things that they understand but just haven't made their way, haven't prioritized yet? Or do you think they're really like, they're just clueless right now on how to work with entrepreneurs, and you just have to keep having conversations, but you think you're making progress?
Yeah, so while they're very supportive with the idea of connecting and helping marginalized farmers, like in my case, sometimes it's just a little bit difficult for me to see the actual work, trickling in. So they keep on, let's say, talking about inclusivity for our marginalized farmers, but I was very always curious with how can they made it into effectivity in order for our farmers to really understand it in their level. So that's what I'm really looking at. So the goal is, of course, I want our farmers to understand the existing policies, may it be local or international, but at the same time, I want to make it as easy as possible for them to digest, that it won't, make them more confused, but just to set place properly and directly, so that they know what to do. What are the things that they are what are the policies and rules that where they can be protected, what are their rights, where they sit in those different policies, because it's always more of interviewing them, and then at the same time not even including them into the whole system, in the decision making, let's say, for example. So I still have some reservations in terms of understanding fully where does it where does it work really, and what are some, cases, yeah, how can we make it further advanced for them.
So does that mean you kind of avoid the conversations and the interactions, or does that mean that you're just trying to figure out like the best ways to affect change. I mean, you can spend your whole career trying to affect change in policymakers. So, you're an entrepreneur, you have to make money, you have to help your communities and your clients. So is it a matter of like just avoiding conversations, just like, it is what it is and move forward? Or is it, look, I'll just spend my time educating them as much as I am as I can.
I don't avoid conversations. I'm always present every time there is an opportunity given. But at the same time, I also want to balance it by what I am receiving, what I am learning, and what I'm understanding can also be translated into the language that our farmers understand really well. I mean, these policies are wonderful, but at the same time, I want them to really understand well. And so when they understand it well, they can see where we're going. So it's like we're aligned in our goals, and at the same time they are being given more advantage, and I mean they're given more chances in what they're doing.
Okay. Makes sense. I mean, you have to kind of accept it for what it is and translate it and make the progress you can.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. That's basically it
Uh,
is.
so
Yeah.
in the spirit of translating lessons to those who need,
Mm.
a little bit of support, as the last question, if you were, speaking with someone who is on the similar path as in your early days, they see a challenge, environmental, social, in the community, whatever, and they want to make a jump. Um, they want to be an entrepreneur. They want to build a platform. They want to be part of the change. What are two or three pieces of advice you'd give that individual that would get them a little bit further along in their own path?
Right. So, first of all, based on experience, don't quit your job because you're inspired. Build something so useful that, people begin to rely on it. And then responsibility when will tell you when it's time. So you don't have to leap immediately. The romantic idea of quitting everything overnight isn't always the wisest path. So instead of doing that, begin by testing your idea while you still have the stability. Start small, serve one community at a time, pay attention to whether your work is actually solving a real problem for real people. Focus less on the excitement of the idea and more on the responsibility. It's always the responsibility that comes with it. So when people begin trusting your work, when farmers start calling you because they depend on your help, then when a community begins planning around the system, that's when the signal becomes clearer.